Hello, I think I've set it up. For those of you who haven't watched any of our other videos before or missed my video, I am Kelsea Cronin. I am a PhD student here at the College of Optical Sciences, and I am here today to show you some Schlieren imaging. But before we get started, I would like to take the time to survey a couple questions. I'll post them as a question, so if you're viewing this live, you can answer that way. But if you're not viewing it live, feel free to post in the comments your answer with either the question or the number of the question. So there's going to be 4 questions in total today. I'm opening this first question up, and that question is going to be, have you ever had any exposure to optics? Give me a second here while I open that up. Yeah, give me a second. Okay, awesome. So that should be open. So please, if you would be willing to answer that question for me, I'd really appreciate it. Since we are actually at before 11, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to answer that question, and then we can move on to the next question. So yeah, so please type in your answers for that. And then we'll get started. So those of you who might not have been on yet, when I first mentioned it, I have opened up a question to the live feed, and I'd really appreciate it if you can answer that question. And the question is the first question I'm going to ask today, which is, have you ever had any exposure to optics? Awesome. So that's just giving you a couple minutes. And now I'm going to open up that second question. So if you missed the first question and are watching this later, feel free to comment your answers, and I can come back and look at them later. And that would be greatly appreciated. So the second question that I have is, would you ever want to grow up and work in optics? If you're already grown up and you already work in optics, also please put, yes, I work in optics, because I would appreciate that. That also falls under the answers. So yeah, so I'm gonna give you a couple more seconds to answer that. Have you ever had any exposure to optics? And then I'll open up this second question. And thank you to those that have answered. I really appreciate it. All right. Give it a little bit more. All right. I'm going to open up that second question. So if you missed the first question, just feel free to leave your answer in the comments. So yeah, so now, would you ever want to grow up and work in optics, or do you already work in optics? And I will give a couple minutes to answer this, as well as, unfortunately, Facebook closes the questions after you open the next one. So Awesome. Thank you guys that have answered that question. Fortunately, I can leave that question open, so feel free to answer at any time. Yeah. So I will get started on our demo today, since it's now 11 o'clock. Today, I will be discussing Schlieren Imaging, which is a demonstration that shows us the phenomenon where you can see the difference in uniformity, in air density uniformity. And this may sound odd, as most of us, think of air as uniform. But in reality, it changes a lot because of heat or cool sources. So anything like heat in the air changes that uniformity, and it changes that index of refraction of changing through the air. So also humans, through movement as well as their heat, and animals and object movement, can also push the air around. So there are two main setups that we can use to demonstrate this Schlieren setup. There's a single mirror setup and a Z-style setup. What I'm going to show you today is that single mirror setup. And in this setup, so if you can see this here, please type yes in the comments. In this setup, we have a camera, so it's a little hard to see, but we have this camera here that we have in the setup. We have a camera which faces a big spherical mirror over here that reflects the light source, which in this picture is an LED, but in our actual setup is a light with a pinhole slit that basically acts like an LED source. So that reflects off the mirror onto the camera. But at the focal point of this mirror, we place a knife edge. And I don't know if you can see that on there. All right. And so the camera has to be outside of the focal point. And so we place a knife edge at this point. And this knife edge actually blocks some of our light. And so now if we place a heat source in this test area in front of our mirror, we can see some cool effects. So I am going to get out of the way now. Oh no, the camera went out. I'm going to go out of the way and show you, this is our Schlieren setup. So let me turn that back on. So if you can see with me here, this screen here shows us the output of the camera. And here we have the camera is set up with, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a pinhole right in front of it. And right next to it is that light source. So this light source has a little pinhole in front of it that you can't see from there, but I can. So that's this setup right around here is all what's really close to us. And then way back here, 120 inches away, is our spherical mirror. I don't know if you can see me on that, but it's way back here. And so the 120 inches comes from the fact that we have to be outside, or not, the camera needs to be outside, but the pinhole is right on where the focal point of the spherical mirror, and as it's 120 inches focal point, then that's where that comes in, why we need that distance so far away. So basically, what I'm going to do is I am going to put a heat source. So let me go grab a heat source. here I have a candle and a lighter. So I am going to light this. And so if you can see here in my video, there's a candle. So now I'm going to go put this in front of the spherical mirror. So I can definitely see it on my end, and you can see it here too. So here at the bottom you can see the actual candle, but here you can see the heat from those flames. Since if you look way back in front of the spherical mirror, it's hard to tell, but that's not actually the flame, that's just the change in air from that. So what is this showing us? Basically, the knife is blocking a portion of the light, about half, I'd say, that the mirror reflects from that pinhole camera source. This causes it to miss the focal point. So it focuses onto the spherical mirror and then focuses back out. It misses that. And it can either be blocked or it can get past when it wasn't supposed to in unexpected ways. These refractions are caused by the change in air density that the heat source creates, in this case, the candle. Thus showing us portions of the heat source that isn't normally visible to the human eye. So that is the basics of the Schlieren Imaging setup. It's really simple, surprisingly so. It's just, you don't even need the camera to do it. It's just easier to show you guys. You can just see it on a piece of paper. That's actually what got me interested in optics in the first place. Is I did this basic setup just on a sheet of paper, and I thought it was so cool to be able to see that like right in front of my eyes. So yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah, so I have a couple more heat sources to show you guys. Right now, the candle is working pretty good, but I also have a heat gun and a soldering iron that I'm gonna play around with a little bit to show you guys some more. But I want to remind you that I have the questions open, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys would answer the first question, which was answer that through the comments if you haven't already. Have you ever had any exposure to optics? And then the second question should still be open, which is, would you ever want to grow up and work in optics? So yeah, if you could please answer that, I would really appreciate it. But I'm going to show you some more cool stuff with this heat source. So the next heat source that I'm going to use is this cool heat gun. So if you can see there, it has a hot and it has a cold setting, and this actually works really well. So I'm going to go back there. Hopefully you can see me back there and hear me. If you can't hear me, type in the comments and I'll try to fix that. But I don't want to be too loud. So yeah, hopefully it'll show us some cool stuff. So right now, first I'm going to set it up with heat on. So yeah, that's definitely see it with heat. Let's see if it's any different when we cool it down. And it looks pretty much the same, which is expected because it's just changing the refractions in almost the exact same way. Awesome. Thank you guys for the responses. Now that I've shown you how the Schlieren Imaging works, do you guys have any questions about it? Feel free to comment those questions and I can try to answer them for you. But now that you've got basically the basics of Schlieren Imaging, I have a couple more questions for you guys. So question 3, so I'm going to close out that second question, so hopefully you've got it answered. So question 3 is, would you ever want to work in optics? And I'm going to open that card now. So if you guys could answer that. If you already work in optics or are planning on it, as I saw in a couple other ones, just put yes. And yeah, so that would be, yeah, that's question 3. And I'll leave this question open for another couple minutes and I will show you the soldering iron while we're waiting. Oh, and I also have acetone too. Cool. So it's a little hard to see, but here, I don't want to bring it all the way over to you because I have it plugged in and heated up already. But here I have a soldering iron. Which I think looks really cool. The tip is just awesome. Yeah, so that was the soldering iron there. I think the thing that I really like about the soldering iron is it's a lot, you can't see the heat the way that you do, or you can't feel the heat as distinctly when you, like as with the heat gun and the flame, but it shows up just as strongly on the image, which is awesome. So yeah, so I have that third question open. Would you ever want to grow up and work in optics? If you guys could respond to that, I'd really appreciate that. And now I'm actually going to show you one other thing to do with it. Oh, my camera went out again. My computer went blank again. And that is an odorless, or this is acetone. So when you squirt acetone, it doesn't, it's harder to see, but if you, yeah, so you can't really see much. But if you spray it in front of the Schlieren setup, it actually looks really cool. So let me show you that. Yeah, so if you can see it there, it's kind of hard to tell. But yeah, there we go. Now you can see it. So I'm not actually squirting anything. It's just coming out, which is really cool. You can definitely see it. But yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, so now you can see the side of the bottle there, but you can also see the acetone. And you can also see the wind caused by me walking away. So yeah, so if you guys, if you're, a reminder again, if you're watching this later, feel free to answer those questions in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. And now I'm going to open up my final question, which is, did you know that light could appear like what I showed in the demo? So did you know that you could bend light this way and make it show non-uniformity in air. So I'm going to open that card, and I'd really appreciate if you guys would answer that. It'd be really helpful. But yeah, so I'll give you 2 more minutes while I mess around with this a little bit. Also, just a reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I can try to answer them. They can be about optics in general, the specific demo, whatever. Or if you also have an idea for a demonstration you would like to see, you can also post that here too, and I will definitely pass that along. So yeah, if you guys could answer that, did you know light could appear like what was shown in the demo? I'd really appreciate it. Yep. I think I'm gonna go play with that candle again. All right, awesome. Thank you guys so much for answering those questions. If there's no more comments or questions, I am going to sign off. But I hope you enjoyed the demo, and tune back next week for another one. Thanks, guys.